Good day, everyone. I am Mirsad Kriještorac, and I'm joining you from sunny South Florida. I am a senior researcher at the Bratislava-based Minority Issues Research Institute, also known by its acronym of MIRI. Our MIRI is dedicated on working towards promoting and protecting human and minority rights in Slovakia and abroad. We believe in the importance of research, education, and active involvement in shaping a more just society. As a part of our activities, we hold monthly conversations with experts and people around the world about important world affairs. And as a host for today's conversation, I'm going to briefly introduce the topic and the guest, and then let our guest actually take over. So May is Haitian Heritage Month, when Haitians worldwide celebrate Flag Day on May 18, marking the official adaptation of the Haitian flag from 1803, when it was displaced for the first time in Arcahaie by the Haitian independence leader Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And now it is celebrated worldwide by Haitians and their friends. The Haitian flag is a national symbol that rose from the fight for independence against slavery and French domination, and symbolizes a heritage of people's power, freedom, and resilience. Yet, Haitians have also lived in the United States of America since the early times of its republic, and were even part of the American struggle for independence. To just mention a few such instances, we can note how it is documented that hundreds of free Haitian men fought on the American side in the siege of Savannah during the American Revolutionary War in 1779. Also, that Louisiana Purchase was facilitated by Haitian Revolution, and the Haitians were instrumental for growing and stabilizing population of New Orleans in the early 19th century. Haitians were also part and parcel of more recent history of growth of, for example, South Florida, where I am, as well as the other metropolitan areas of the country. Healthcare is one of the areas where Haitian Americans have made a tangible difference to the quality of life across the United States. Haitian doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals provide critical services in hospital, clinics, and private practices, often in underserved communities, and especially during the recent pandemic, when Haitian American medical professionals have been at the forefront of public health responses. While they were there, and despite such long history of Haitian Americans in the United States, the community participation and contribution is not well known, studied, or understood. Such lack of information and knowledge leaves room for prejudice of various kinds, discrimination, and inaccurate and outrageous comments by the media, public figures, and others about the community. To address the shortcoming and celebrate Haitian Heritage Month, MIRI is holding this conversation about the community with a Haitian philosopher and sociologist, Dr. Paul Mocombe. Dr. Mocombe is currently a professor of philosophy and sociology at Keiser University and lecturer at the London Institute of Education. Dr. Mocombe is the author of many books, and we can mention just few, and this is my personal preference, such as Jesus and the Streets, Race and Class Distinction Within Black Communities, Language, Literacy, and Pedagogy in Post-Industrial Society, among others, right? As well as hundreds of peer-reviewed articles. And again, my personal preference to mention at least two of those. Among them, there is no Black American Identity and Community, and Black American Communities from Pathology to Intersectionality. Again, these are just two among hundreds of peer-reviewed articles. He's interested in the application of social theory to contemporary issues such as consciousness, race, class, and capitalism with globalization. As a Haitian American, Dr. Mocombe frequently comments and talks about various issues relating to the Haitian community at home and abroad. Before Dr. Mocombe takes over, let me repeat the code of conduct for our events. We are going to first hear the presentation by our guest for about half an hour, and after that, we will open the discussion for questions and answers. If you want to ask a question in person, please raise the hand icon and we'll call upon you. Once your microphone is on, you are also welcome to turn your camera if you wish as well, but you don't have to. Then at that point, please introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining us from, and then ask your question. Those of you who cannot join over the microphone, please type in your question in the chat box, and we'll try to ask them on your behalf. And thank you all for your cooperation. And now let's turn our attention to Dr. Mocombe. Dr. Mocombe, please take over.
Thank you, Dr. Mirsad, for inviting me this morning. As I was telling Dr. Mirsad this morning, I'm a bit under the weather. My wife and I were traveling. My son graduated with his doctorate in physical therapy, so I got sick, but it's a little bittersweet. This morning, what I want to do is explain the immigration pattern of Haitians vis-a-vis the history of the island to basically contextualize the Haitian American community that we witness here in America. Now, there's a huge Haitian immigrant population in Canada, for example, in France as well. But the Haitian American immigration pattern, although similar to the Canadian and the French pattern, is slightly different, and we'll see why within the next 30 minutes why that would happen. It's very important that we understand that the immigration pattern of Haitians, especially to the Americas, is interconnected to the history of the island. The Haitian, and I will commence with the Haitian Revolution. Once again, Saint-Domingue, which was the name of the island of Hispaniola, also known as Haiti, which was its original name, which the Taino natives gave to the island, was divided between the Spanish and the French by 1697. The Haitian Revolution commences in 1791 during a ceremony called the Ceremony of Bois-Caïman, which is the northern part of the island. Now, this is where we have to understand this. It is from this moment that we will contextualize the immigration pattern as well, because Haiti's class structure or its stratification was along racial lines. Now, basically, 4 racial classes dominated Haitian society by 1791. When the Haitian Revolution commences, 70% of the population were directly from Africa. This is very important. That is 70% of the population, a population of about 600,000. 70% of that population was directly from Africa. They were not acculturated in the French language. They were not acculturated to French society. In fact, they were discriminated against by not only the white slave master, the white slave French masters, but they were also discriminated against by what they would call the affranchi class in Haiti. The affranchi class was composed of your mulatto elites who basically they were the police force of the colony. They were used by the French to police the blacks on the island. And they were divided between this mulatto class and this Creole black class who were one generation removed from slavery. So the Creole, so you have the white French, you have the mulatto elites, you have this black Creole class, and Creole simply refers to those Africans who were born on the island to African parentage. So they became acculturated in the French system. And then they were divided between the Africans. In fact, there's a pejorative term that was used to describe the Africans. They were known as bossal. Bossal meant you were from Africa and you were dirty. You were below the lowest. class of people on the island. And it is among that class, that bourgeois class, that we date the origins of the Haitian Revolution at Arcahaie. So you have the whites, you have the mulatto elites, you have the Creole blacks, and then you have the bourgeois, the Africans. And I don't like to use the term bourgeois because it was actually a derogatory term used against the Africans. And Haiti would evolve after the revolution. I won't go into all of the history. We have a short time, but majority of the leadership of the revolution was divided between the Creole blacks, the mulatto elites, and the Africans. So the mulatto elites, revolutionary leaders, for those who may not know the history of Haiti, the mulatto elites, the revolutionary elites of the revolution, they were Rigaud, Pétion, Boyer. Those are the main mulatto elites. In fact, Napoleon sent the mulattoes to recapture after 1791. Napoleon actually sends the mulatto class to recapture the island of Haiti for France, but we'll get into that a bit later. The Creole blacks were represented by these revolutionary leaders: Toussaint, Dessalines, Christophe, Capois-Lamont. They represented the Creole leadership during the revolution. And the Africans were actually represented by Mocombe, Sans Souci, Jean Biasso. These were the African who represent the interests of the African leadership. Now, that's very important because these interests diametrically oppose one another. The Africans wanted nothing to do with the plantation system. The mulatto elites, they wanted to maintain the plantation system, but simply participate, because by law they were not allowed to participate, to own land, to become doctors, lawyers. So they were fighting for equality with whites. The Creole blacks, same thing. They're fighting for equality with both the whites and the mulatto elite class. However, the Africans wanted nothing to do with the revolutionary leadership of the Creoles or the mulattoes. And that's very important, because what will happen, Jean-Jacques Dessalines in 1804 declares independence from France, but that's only after Napoleon. From 1791 to about 1801, Toussaint has kicked out the French off of the island. And as a result, what remained were the Creole blacks and the mulattoes. And Toussaint goes to war with the mulatto elites. It's called the War of Knives in Haitian history. And he defeats the mulattoes, and they all leave the island, and they go and they return to France. When Napoleon consolidates his power in Europe, he sends the mulatto elites, he sends Pétion, Boyer, and Rigaud to recapture the island from the Creole blacks, which included Toussaint, Dessalines, Christophe. And what Toussaint did, once he removed the French and the mulattoes off the island, he simply reproduced the plantation economy in Haiti. He forced the Africans to work back on the plantations. And so he did that because he wanted Haiti to remain a French colony, but without slavery. He wanted the Africans to work on the plantations for wages. Excuse me. So by 1803, Napoleon consolidates his power, and he sends the mulattoes to recapture the island for France. So Pétion returns, Boyer returns, and they're fighting the Creole blacks who were on the island. Who are the Creole blacks? Toussaint, Dessalines. And the Creole blacks had their own antagonistic relationship with the Africans who remained on the island, because Toussaint was constantly at war with the African leadership, even though the mulatto elites and the French left. So at 1803, when the mulattoes return, what happens is Toussaint is captured, and the French tried to reimpose slavery on the island. So Dessalines, who represented the Creole blacks, he realized that was the intent of the French. So what he did was he formed a coalition between himself and the Africans. Because what happened when the mulatto elites returned with the French soldiers, they recaptured the island, and the Creole blacks joined the mulattoes and the French against the Africans. So the Africans were continuing to fight under Mocombe and Sans Souci. When Dessalines realized they were losing, he formed a coalition with Christophe and the Africans. And Christophe actually assassinates the African leadership. He assassinates Sans Souci. In fact, he names his palace in Cap Haitien after Sans Souci. That being said, they formed this coalition, and he goes to Pétion, who represented the French leadership as a mulatto, and he says, hey, let's kick out the French and we'll take over the island and divide the spoils amongst us. So it's called the Treaty of Arcahaie, which is in 1803. They form a coalition, they kick out the French. In 1804, Dessalines declares the island independent from French rule. He becomes the first emperor. He is not the first president. Haiti is not a republic. It is founded as a black empire so that all blacks can come to Haiti. Wherever you are, Haiti was supposed to be a refuge for all blacks in 1804 at the time. So by that time, Dessalines is having issues with the mulattoes who want to reimpose the plantation system and the Africans who want nothing to do with the plantation system. So what happens is Pétion assassinates Dessalines in 1806. He kills him. He consolidates the island. In fact, the island is split between himself and Christophe, and the Africans go into the mountains, and this begins the immigration pattern of Haitians. What happens after the assassination of Dessalines in 1806 is that the majority of the Africans who wanted nothing to do with the plantation system, they went into the mountains in the provinces of the country. The Creole blacks, they consolidated the land that Toussaint had given them from around 1800 to 1801. And the Creole blacks, the leadership tended to be former plantation slave drivers. So they took over some of the territory that the French left behind. The mulatto elites, they took over the land that they inherited from their fathers. So basically, the Africans were in the mountains. So a struggle emerges between the Creole blacks and the mulatto elites on the island. And the first group of immigrants to leave Haiti are your political leadership, which was divided between the Creole blacks and the mulattoes. So this fight over political power between the mulattoes, the descendants of the mulattoes, from Pétion, Boyer, Toussaint, Christophe. So if there was a mulatto in power, many of the immigrants tended to be the Creole blacks who would go to places like Jamaica. They would come to the Philadelphia areas, the Louisiana area, because remember, the Louisiana Purchase takes place in 1803. So even by that time, the majority of people in that Louisiana basin, they still had Haitian and African roots. For example, many people don't know Homer Plessy, the famous Plessy versus Ferguson case. Homer Plessy was Haitian. Many people don't know that W.E.B. Du Bois, his descendants are Haitian. They all tended to, the initial immigration pattern tended to go from the elites. They were French speaking because the Creole blacks, as well as the mulattoes, they emulated many of the French culture. The majority of the Africans do not leave the island. They have their own land. In fact, by 1820, Haiti is the only place throughout the world where Black people actually own land. They farmed their own, they grew their own crops, and whatever they didn't grow, whatever they didn't whatever they didn't grow for subsistent agriculture, they sold to market. So you didn't find many Black or what we call Bosal or Africans leaving the island. The initial immigration pattern begins with the Creole Blacks and the mulatto elites who, in their struggle for political power, would leave the island if they lost. And they tended to go to places like Jamaica. In fact, if you go to Jamaica today, you'll see a strong Haitian presence in Jamaica, especially the mulatto. For example, people like Boyer, when he was deposed, he fled to Jamaica, Pichon and others. The second group, so throughout the 18th and early 1900s, the majority of those who would leave Haiti tended to be your political elites because of this power struggle over the Haitian state. You don't find Haitians of the African persuasion from the mountains in the provinces leaving Haiti until post the Duvalier regime. Now, this is very important because what we find is from 1804 to about 1954, when Jean-Claude Duvalier comes into power in Haiti, it is your elites who leave the island for either France, Jamaica, or Canada because of this political struggle. You will not see once Jean-Jacques Dessalines, once Francois Duvalier consolidate power, the next group of Blacks, the majority of those who would come to America tended to be your mulatto class because Duvalier instituted a colorism in his political state because he felt that this struggle between the Creole Blacks and the mulatto elites, it favored the Creole Blacks. So what he did was to consolidate his power. He developed the Tonton Macoute. He incorporated a lot of Africans into the Vaudouism. He incorporated many of the Africans into his cabinet at the expense. And he formulates the Tonton Macoute because to offset the privileges that the army had, which was filled with mulatto elites. So he used the Tonton Macoute as a counterbalance to the army, which was filled with Creole generals, etc. So from 1954 till about 1983, the majority of those who would leave Haiti would be your mulatto class who felt they were discriminated against by the Black nationalist class of the Duvalier regime. So there's a great book if you all are interested. It's autobiographical. It's called List Avec. I forgot the writer, but if you Google it, it's a great book. It explains about this mulatto class that leaves Haiti in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. They come to America. They tend to more so identify with the French culture. They tend more so to identify themselves as French. And this alienated them from the Black American class because they came in with that French attitude, French privilege. So they tended to be alienated from the Black American community when they first arrived. So from the 50s to about the 1980s, it is the mulatto class who would leave Haiti and immigrate to places like America, Canada, France, and the Caribbean. Once Duvalier passes away and his wife, and his son, who we call Baby Doc, assumes the political leadership in Haiti, there's a return of that mulatto class back to the island. And this is full disclosure. Baby Doc is married to my father's first cousin, Michel Binet. And it is because of Michel Binet that my father was able to go to school in France to study to become a pilot. And from France, he came to America. But that's because my father's parents were of that mulatto class. So even though my grandfather was a farmer, him and Michel Bennett were first cousins. So Michel Bennett's father, who is NS, he was a big coffee distributor at the time. So I use that as an example to show you the juxtaposition of race and class within the immigration pattern of the Haitians as they began to leave the island. So with the fall of Papa Doc, Baby Doc assumes power. The mulatto class returns to the island to try to get involved back into the political process because they never sold their land or anything. So it is the election and coup d'etat against Aristide that we start to see the influx of Africans leaving the mountains and provinces of Haiti and coming to America. Because what happens with the fall of Baby Doc in the 1980s, Haiti is just bombarded with Christian missionaries, NGOs, nonprofits trying to do for the Haitian people, etc. And it is this Christian group who would go into, especially of the Protestant persuasion, who would go into the mountains and the provinces. They would convert what we call Vaudouisans, the Africans, into emerging Pentecostalism, Episcopalianism, Protestants in general. And it is this Christian group who would be instrumental in having many Haitians immigrate to the United States post the fall of Baby Doc. Now, and also this includes post the fall of Aristide's administration as well. And we call this group of immigrants who would come to America boat people, because majority of them, they fled the island because of political and economic oppression. They fled the island in boats. And this is where we get this huge influx of Haitians from about the late 80s, early 90s, and even now, contemporarily post the earthquake in 2010, we start to see a group of Africans leaving Haiti and coming. Now, they're distinguishable from the early group of immigrants who came to America, such as the mulatto elites and the Creole. Many of them did not speak French because from post-independence, the political elites did not establish schools throughout the island for the Africans in the provinces. In fact, when Boyer becomes president in 1821, he closed he closed all of the schools. There was a war between himself and Christophe. He closed all of the schools in Haiti, in the provinces, in the north, and forced the Africans to return to plantation because he made a deal with the French. We call that the independence debt, and there's a misnomer behind that debt. It is the mulattoes who offered to the French this payment to recognize Haiti's independence. The French did not impose the debt on Haiti. It is the mulattoes who offered. But anyway, if we understand this immigration pattern in of the different groups who would leave Haiti post-independence to contemporarily, we can see what's happening within the Haitian American community today. And I'm going to close with a description of the Haitian American community. What you have is the majority of the Haitian American immigrant community would be dominated by the Africans who would leave the mountains and provinces of Haiti. So we're no longer dealing with your political elites who left the island because of political persecution. Now you're dealing with a group of people who left the island because of socioeconomic issues, as well as some discriminatory issues on the island. Many people don't know this. Haiti is one of the most racist countries in the Western Hemisphere. The class and race differentiation is embedded in Haitian society. It's even in some of our proverbs, and I'll share with when we get to the questions and answer period. But so what you have is a group of people who, without much schooling, because schools weren't established, there weren't many schools established on the island. So post Aristide, you have a group that would come to America. They would be discriminated against by not only the white American community, but also the Black American community. In fact, if majority of them tended to come to South Florida or the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, because that's where the original group of Haitian political elites established themselves. In fact, you'll still find that pocket of Long Island, New York, of your elite Haitians, the political elites who came to America post-independence. And so you have a population that came looking for socioeconomic aspirations. They had socioeconomic aspirations. They were an impoverished population. They arrived in the Miami, South Florida area. They tended to be heavily Christian, Protestant, very religious, and it is that generation from 1990 with the fall of Aristide to contemporarily. This is the new generation of Haitian Americans who are now matriculating through the public school system, the university system. They tend to consolidate Haitian culture around Haitian food, such as griot, bon appetit. They tend to worship May 18th, January 1st. They really don't have an understanding of the history, because that history was only privileged to your elites in Haiti. So given that this population were an impoverished group of people who arrived on, especially on the American soil post the 1990s, they really don't have an understanding of the history. For example, we just celebrated May 18th, Haitian Flag Day. Many young Haitians of that, their first and second generation Haitian American, they celebrate the blue and red flag as the Haitian flag. But that's not the flag of Haiti, written in Haiti's Constitution of 1805. Dessalines, when he writes the Haitian Constitution, the Haitian flag is supposed to be black and red. The blue and red flag is the flag of the Haitian Republic that Haitian would adopt. There is a blue and red flag that Dessalines utilized during the revolution, but he abandoned that blue and red flag for the black and red. This is why Duvalier used the black and red flag. So there's a lot within the Haitian American immigrant community today, and we're dealing mostly with a Creole-speaking, Christian, heavy Protestant community that came post the 1990s, who have consolidated Haitian culture around many misnomers, misunderstanding about the culture, because they left Haiti, many of them uneducated, unable to read, and now their children are the ones promoting Haitian culture, even though it is a misunderstood culture. Many of them don't have the background, but this is the group that we're seeing today in our university systems, that Dr. Mirsad is dealing with at BCC. It is that post-1990 African group that would leave Haiti for socioeconomic opportunities in the Americas. So I'll take questions. I know I've been a little long, but I want to understand, for you all to understand the class structure as well as the racial structure that would dominate the immigration pattern of Haiti of Haitians as they left Haiti and arrived to the Americas.
Thank you, Dr. Mocombe. I learned so much from you already. And I realized that I was perpetuating some of these misnomers and misunderstandings, but forgive me, right? That's why we have you today, because as I said, when we first met it's really amazing to see how many Haitian Americans are around me, and I really know very little about them. And
Mm.
so that's why I said, okay, let's try to shine some light on that. But that story of Plessy was fascinating. You know, we cannot find a photo of Plessy because I'd like to show it to students, but I can't find it. So if you have a photo, I will appreciate if you can share it with us because
You
there,
know who has a photo of Plessy? I believe the historian, the he's a Marxist historian. Oh God, it slipped my mind. I'll get in touch with him, and he'll give me one. I'll share. Plessy was a mulatto.
yes, yes. Well, that's amazing. So now we're going to open for the questions and answers. Everybody's welcome to just raise your hand icon or type in your question in whatsoever way you want to join us, please do. But like while we waiting for you to formulate your questions, I was just struck by how you concluded, right? The fascinating story of history. And we were talking before we started how history in some parts of the world never really goes away. Like unlike in America, we don't know what happened 2 days ago, right? But to what extent then it is difficult and unpleasant, if I may even use that word, to talk uh, to Haitian Americans about all this stuff, right? I'm sure you probably have encountered issues and difficulties talking about the accurate, you know, history and accurately about what happened before. And then also, what struck me, if you can indulge us on that racist Haiti that you mentioned, or racism in Haiti, I often talk to my students and try to somehow persuade them that the colorism is not necessarily racism. There is oftentimes a color-blind racism, and the racism by itself has oftentimes nothing to do with the color, but it has to do with some other factors. So, you know, when you mention that, I would love to know more about it. Like, so
Yeah,
essentially, I have two questions until somebody joins us. Like that
okay.
understanding, how does that work with the communicating with the population, even Haitian Americans, and how would you like describe a little more that, you know, colorblind racism that you're probably talking about when it comes to Haiti?
Definitely. And the historian who may have a picture of Homer Plessy, his name is Gerald Horn. Gerald Horn is a great historian, especially on Haitian historiography. To answer your two questions, first, communicating about the history is very difficult because what happened in historiography is Haitian historiography is very polemical. So the mulatto elites, they have their own version of the history of Haiti. So they'll celebrate the leadership such as Ligo, Petion, Boyer. And the Creole blacks had their own history of Haiti, and they'll celebrate. This is why whenever you hear recounting of the Haitian Revolution, they'll celebrate people like uh, uh, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Toussaint Louverture, Henri Christophe, Capois Lamont, but you never hear about the Africans, the African leadership, Makaya, Sans Souci. Those are omitted because they came from the Creole, the African population who did not read or write or matriculate in French schools, whereas your Creole blacks and your mulatto elites, because they had French education, they were able to write the history from those perspectives. So when you do research on Haitian history, it's very important to understand that it's polemical and it's ideological. So communicating that, especially the racism in Haiti, because what happened is just like the whites imposed a racial caste system through slavery, well, the political elites also reinforced that caste system. You did not find, in fact, there's a proverb in which a black man is successful in Haiti when he either has a white wife or a mulatto wife. And he could only marry into the mulatto community if he was as a black person, if he was educated. So those two examples demonstrate the racial class system that would be perpetuated from 1804 even now to the present. Because in contemporary Haiti, you still have an oligarchical class, and for those who don't know, it's just a class of wealthy people that is dominated by the mulatto elites, the Creole blacks, supplemented with a Syrian group that would arrive post-World War II in Haiti, and the Arab elite that would come to Haiti post-World War II. They constitute the ruling class in Haiti today. So you still have that racism. And when you're dealing with so when you deal with that, it's not a colorism like you would find in Jamaica or other It's more of a racial caste system like you would find in places like Brazil. That's how you would describe Haiti. To the point where if you're and you can see that through, I'm gonna use soccer to demonstrate the racial caste system in Haiti. So in Haiti, the majority of the Africans and blacks on the island, they celebrate Brazil or Brazilian soccer because Pele and the majority of the players tend to be black. But the mulatto elites, they tend to favor Argentina. So you see the racial class divide even in soccer, even in music. For example, compa was founded in 1962 by a man named Nemu Jean-Baptiste. And what he did was he took the African voodoo beats and he added it onto the merengue beat because the mulatto elites, they would have they danced merengue, bachata, because they felt more of an affinity with Dominican Republic and Cuba. So their form of dance was merengue. So when Nemu Jean-Baptiste comes up with compa, he added the voodoo writ onto the merengue beat, and that's how we get compa. So the elites look down on compa because they view it as too African, too salacious, etc. But what we see, which is strange, because the Haitian American community, they're reinventing compa. I myself don't like the way they're reinventing compa by taking the gouillade element of compa out of it. I have this thing for culture and dance. So, but we can see through music, through popular culture, how race and class divide and continues to divide Haiti. You can't go to Haiti now because compa and to be Haitian is being embraced because of Wyclef Jean. You find many of the elites, they're starting to get involved in some of the popular culture. But, you know, in the 1960s and 70s, that wasn't something that you would find among the mulatto elites. Excuse me.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. But one of the guests is saying, I'm not clear at all about the racism. Give a real example. And he says, could we not use another words instead of racism? And then he's commenting as you speak that that's not racism at all, what you're talking about.
Okay.
Like, again, it looks like, if I may just say it, right, it's a little bit of an internal discussion. So just indulge us, rest of us who are not familiar with these internal dynamics, like to what extent
yes,
how can we understand that? And then we have one of the guests also raised the hand to ask a question.
Now, when we argue about racism, we're arguing the racism on similar to the American class system? Yes. Haiti's racism / classism was racial. The mulatto elites held the same racist ideology that the French had. Pétion viewed the Africans as inherently inferior. Boyer, same thing. He felt that they were inherently inferior and they discriminated against them. In fact, the mulatto class was used as a police force to police the island. It was a racial caste system in Haiti. Now, the Creole blacks also discriminated against the African, the Bossard class. However, what differentiated how Toussaint viewed the Africans. If you look at how Toussaint dealt with Makaya and Sans Souci, he also looked down on the Africans. He felt they were uncivilized. Makaya, in his interactions with Toussaint, he felt Toussaint was a white man. He wanted to exploit the Africans and use the Africans. So yes, both classes inherited the racial class ideology of the 18th and 19th century. Now, as Haiti became consolidated as a state, it became more of a colorism, which the lighter you are, the more likely you are to hold power positions in Haiti. But the inherent racist ideology that dominated the 18th and 19th century by the 20th century is not around anymore. Now, they discriminated against the Africans because of their religious practices, such as voodoo and voodoo dances. In fact, in the 1960s, when Duvalier would send folkloric groups to go dance in the Americas, etc., they would emphasize that, the racial aspect of the religiosity of the Africans. So yes, there's a transition in Haiti from a strict racial caste system to a colorism that still dominates Haitian politics today. In fact, it dominates Haitian politics in the form that there's a saying in Haiti, petit Dessalines pas en affaire avec petit Pétion. Translated, the descendants of Dessalines, meaning the Africans and the Black, do not interfere or intermingle with the children of Pétion, which is the mulatto elite. In fact, that is a political moniker that dominates Haitian politics today. They said when you hear political slogans, petit Pétion, c'est pas petit Dessalines. So the racial caste class system still is inundated in Haitian society till this day. And until we get over this racial caste class system, Haiti you'll never see any progress in Haiti. In fact, Haiti is simply a colony of the U.S. with your Creole Blacks and your Syrian and mulatto elites governing the country for Western domination.
All right, so lot to digest, and I was wondering how that translates here. But let's kind of first hear from Taylor. Taylor was patient, and he raised the hand. Taylor, can you please turn on your mic and ask the question directly, and then we'll continue.
Yes, hi, thank you. My name is Tyler. I'm calling in down here from Coral Springs. I did have a question about the France's attempt to reoccupy and reestablish this plantation system in Haiti. Was that still motivated by this racist ideology of wanting to retain control of the Black community there, or was it like purely an economic sort of endeavor?
Well, the economics dominate the racial ideology because he sends his brother-in-law, General Leclerc, to reestablish control over. Remember, Haiti was the richest colony in the Caribbean for France. So to the point where Napoleon was willing to sell the Louisiana Purchase to Thomas Jefferson to simply maintain Haiti because Haiti outperformed all of the colonies combined, Jamaica, the 13 colonies. So it was one of the richest colonies. It was the jewel of France's economic coffers. So the driving force is to maintain Haiti as a colony. And the second driving force is this racial ideology because he informed Leclerc to kill all of the men and just leave the women and all the young children under 12 years old because he had to maintain control, and the only way to maintain control is to kill the revolutionary class. So it is both driven by economics. I would say economics would be number one, and racial ideology number two. In fact, on his deathbed, Napoleon actually said that he wished he had listened to Toussaint and allowed Haiti to remain a colony with Toussaint Louverture as the governor of Haiti, but it was too late. So, but yes, it was driven by economics, definitely, and race being the secondary motive.
Excellent. Okay, so Luis, if you want to ask a question, you're welcome to turn on your mic and ask. But I was wondering, as you talk about this, right? So obviously, you know, there's that path dependency theory that suggests that something that happened early still has an outcome or still has effects on things that are still happening. But to what extent all these issues transfer? Because let's keep it to the United States context. To what extent these issues from Haiti transfer here, right? We do know, for example, the patterns of immigration or the chain migrations, that usually people from one region, I may not say village or town, you know, tend to settle in one place, like in Coral Springs, and then another town settles another community and stuff. So is that normal pattern, because it's normal really that chain migration was happening with everybody else, like all other
Yes.
countries that came to the United States? Or is it
Yes.
that also a result of this type of back home dynamics, which essentially, you know, still work as the community comes here, it carries it with itself, right?
Good question, because and this will tie this back to the racism question, because what happened when the initial group of immigrants to leave Haiti, the mulatto class under Duvalier, for example, when they arrived to America, because of the racism in America, they automatically became Black, which was shocking. This is why I refer to the book Gustave, because he gets into the psychological dynamics that American racism played in amongst the initial group of mulattoes who would immigrate to places like New York, Boston, because in Haiti, they did not view themselves as being racially inferior or as even being Black. But when they arrived in America, you know, America has the 1% drop rule. If you have 1% of Black blood, you're Black. So many of them, for the first time, they encountered racism when they arrived. And so now this force of bondage between the initial group of Haitians who would leave Haiti in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and this group of Blacks who would arrive post the Aristide administration in the 1990s. So now you get this solidarity among the mulattoes and the mulattoes as well as the Africans here in America that you don't find in Haiti. But this chain of migration established initially by the mulatto class, Haitians here in America would also, Haitians who would leave in the 1990s would also follow that same migration chain. But for the most part, they tended to settle in the Miami area, whereas the first group of Haitians tended to settle in the New York, Brooklyn, New Jersey area, Boston, that whole metropolitan area. So now we start to see a racial divide, well, not a racial divide, but a class divide in the Haitian American community, in that the initial group of Haitians in that New Jersey, Boston metropolitan area, because they've been here so long, they tended to be more affluent versus the second group of Haitians who would arrive in the Miami area tended to be poorer, less educated, and therefore looked down upon. But still, there is a solidarity around being Haitian, which is not shared on the island, for example. Excuse me.
Okay, so that's interesting. So similar to let's say Cubans in Miami, like they all
Yes, very,
have that
yes,
same
yes.
dynamic, you know, those
Yeah,
who came
exactly.
earlier versus those who
Yes,
came
definitely,
after, right? That's great.
definitely.
Okay, I am inviting Luis because he made some good comments, but if he wants to join and pose a comment or question, in person, you're welcome to, Louis. But other than that, I was also to ask because I noticed and I experienced some of those like small and subtle differences, or how the Haitian community here is being treated, even by other communities of African descent, whether they're African Americans or Jamaicans, or let me not mention Dominicans, right? And, how that essentially plays a role here in helping or making it harder for Haitian Americans to settle or to somehow, grow socioeconomically and move up. To what extent that within that so-called African American group, because you wrote an article on that,
Yes.
that plays a role.
Yes. What's interesting about the Haitian immigration pattern, it doesn't differ much from the Jamaican immigration pattern. The only difference I would say is because the Jamaicans, they tended to speak English, they more so assimilated within the Black American community, even though many West Indians in general, when they arrived to America, they had a class superiority vis-a-vis the Black American, and therefore they tended to look down on the Black American as they matriculated. Because they spoke English, it was a lot easier for them to matriculate in the American socioeconomic social structure. Whereas Haitians, number one, Haitians, it's only within the last 10 years that Haiti became part of CARICOM, the Caribbean community. But prior to that, Haiti, because of its independence, had a history that was diametrically opposed to what you find in the rest of the Caribbean. Not only that, but there was a linguistic barrier when Haitians arrived here. There was also a color barrier because there's a saying that Haiti is Africa in the Caribbean. There was also a cultural barrier. many many of the stereotypes of Haitians who arrived in America was that they were voodoo practitioners, which is still a stereotype that dominates the community today. And therefore, voodoo, because of the Anglo-American ethnocentrism, was looked down upon by not only whites, but also Black Americans. So there were several serial discriminatory factors that impacted Haitians as they attempted to matriculate. One of them being language, the second being culture, the voodoo culture, which many, especially the post-1990s Haitians who would arrive here, they weren't even practitioners. Many of them don't know anything about voodoo to start with. Their children don't know anything about voodoo or the voodooism community of Haiti. But so it was a linguistic factor. It was a cultural factor that led to discrimination, even from Blacks in the Caribbean. So the Haitians have had to deal with a lot. And as they begin to consolidate the culture, a lot of time, unbeknownst to them, they're doing a disservice to the culture. But we're starting to see more embracing of Haitian culture, embracing of the Haitian immigrant identity. And I'll say most of that begins with Wyclef Jean. When Wyclef forms the Fugees, we start to see more of a respect for Haitian identity, Haitian culture. But it's been a long time coming.
Okay, so and you mentioned in passing, but I am interested in that a little bit more. You said that sense of Haitian solidarity is developing, or rather, it's getting stronger because with this last presidential election, some of the statements the candidates made and the media then perpetuated was quite outrageous. We know that it is a role of the elite to maintain stability, as I say to my students, but they will like to find scapegoats, right? So they will point
Yes.
to minorities. And so to what extent this external pressure helps Haitians build this, how you say, sense of solidarity and
the sense of solidarity is more so, I would say, within the Haitian diasporic community, because you still have the same racial class dynamics that's impacting the island itself. Haiti is heavily divided along racial class lines because of the class disparity between the blacks who, because of push and pull economic pressures, were forced to leave the mountains and the provinces to go to the city looking for work. Most of the factories are owned by the Syrian and mulatto elites. So you still have that racial class factor that's impacting the politics of Haiti to the point where the political slogans are, we are the children of Dessalines, you're the children of Pétion. There's still this drive, let's form a solidarity, but the economic divide is so strong, the racial class divide is so strong that I don't think they'll ever be reconciled. But because of racism in America, the Haitians were forced to form a solidarity that did not exist on the island. So I would say it is the racial class factor here in America that forced Haitians to form this class solidarity that you don't find on the island itself.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying because it reflects on what Louis is a guest in the program too, commenting, and it's quite interesting to me also to see how people try to somehow distinguish racism from economic factors, but the whole purpose of racism is essentially to get some
Yes.
economic advantage. But that's okay.
Yes.
He made a comment. It's not always racism when a nation doesn't support or let someone within it grow. In some cases, like in Haiti after independence, when the country was divided between Christophe and in the north and Pétion in the south, the struggle was not about race, but about power, leadership, class, and deep historical wounds, which is kind of pretty much a good description of racism, right?
Yeah.
Much of the lack of support of opportunities in the countries like Haiti can be traced back to colonial trauma, slavery, internalized oppression, and systemic lack of education. These patterns can create jealousy, distrust, and division, not based on race, but on a long history of being divided, exploited, and denied unity. It's a different category, one rooted in psychological, social, and political wounds passed down through generation. As far as I know about race, that's
race.
He
uses I want to close
it's
on
not a
this.
color. It's not a color. It's about designation. Race is a construct. It could be differently constructed. I was perhaps a black person where I used to live, right?
Yeah, race was an economic, as Franz Fanon points out psychologically in Black Skin, White Mask, race is a result of socio-economic relations to divide. So that's a moot point. But the only other fact I want to point out, and this is very important, many, especially in the Caribbean, they always want to look to education as the solution for racial equality and class equality. But what we fail to realize, as Chomsky points out and other scholars, education is an ideological apparatus. It's in place to reproduce the socioeconomic system. But people throw around education as, oh, if you get an education, you'll be free, you can make money, blah, blah, blah. No, it creates what Fanon calls a comprador bourgeois class that perpetuates the socioeconomic racial structure. And that's what you have in Haiti. You have an elite educated in French schools, American schools, who are in place to reproduce the neoliberal economic system at the expense of the majority of the people. So we have to reconfigure the educational system in Haiti outside, just like the Chinese had to do with their cultural revolution. We have to do the same, and we must not adopt. And this is what's happening in Burkina Faso now under Traoré. He's reconceptualizing not only the educational system, but the cultural system, because the elites of Haiti reproduce a liberal Republican system in Haiti that perpetuated the racial class caste system that dominates Haitian society today.
Yeah, like Foucault also talks about it, right? About,
yes.
How knowledge is being produced and decimated, and and what questions are being asked and what questions are not being asked, And
Absolutely.
Marx
Absolutely.
says the very question you ask essentially sets the conditions.
That's
But okay,
absolutely.
let's see. Christopher has a question. Christopher, please go ahead, turn on your mic and ask, please.
To go back to the Lewis' previous question when it comes to the difference between racism, I view racism as mainly just association. And from what you said, it seems like with the Africans and Haiti and those groups, they associate the Creole. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. The Creole associate them with poverty,
Yes.
stupidity, education, associating them with all those negative things, and because of that, it's racism. It's different between like viewing just a poor guy and just associating him with him negative things, but it's just because of what they are, they're automatically associated with those negative things.
Absolutely. Remember, the economic racism is an offshoot of capitalist relations of production. It's not that the French went into Africa racist. No, they used race to justify the colonial economic system. And as a result of the economic system, here Marx is absolutely right. The economic base determines the ideological structure. So once slavery was established as an economic system to perpetuate mercantilist capitalism, they developed ideologies to support that system. Hence, you had educated people who talked about the inferiority of blacks, all as an intent to perpetuate the economic system. From Immanuel Kant to Hegel, all of these quote unquote scholars were racist because they found themselves dealing in a system that reproduced the ideology they were trying to justify. So it was a paradox. So we must begin with the racial class system as an economic system that was justified through racial ideology. And this racial ideology, for example, Antonin Fimet in his book on race, he attacks Goubinau's ideas of racism by pointing to Egyptian civilization as the cradle of civilization. He's trying to eradicate the racist ideology that the French and the Europeans had put in place to justify the economic system. They even used the Bible to justify slavery. Slaves, obey your masters. So some of the religious doctrines that were taught to blacks were put in place to justify the socio-economic system. And over time, it became reified. Reification is when you take concepts and you make them things as though it's real. So therefore, race became, and I'm going to use a sophisticated term, race became ontological. What that means is race and racism was a given. It was an immutable. It was all blacks are ignorant, are salacious, etc. It became ontological, which is different from being sociological. Race was a socio-economic aspect to justify the capitalist system and all of the ideologies that would come out of the economic relations would buttress race and racism, which continues. Blacks are racist. I believe Obama is one of the most racist people in America. How, as a black man, you kill Gaddafi? But that's why Fanon writes his book, Black Skin, White Mask, because as blacks, we internalize the racism and the racial ideology by which we were socialized to benefit the socio-economic system. This is why the majority of the mulattoes were racist. Pétion was a racist. Dessalines offered his daughter to marry Pétion, and he said, no, I'm not going to marry a nigger, period. That's race. That's racism. So, a lot of Haitians don't want to deal with that.
Strong language, Dr. Mocombe.
Yes, very
Okay.
much so.
Okay. All right. So I want to ask one more question, if okay. The Aristide. I remember Aristide was he was here in the United States for a while, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
before he returned back to Haiti to assume the presidency, and then after that he was escorted to Central African Republic, right? So, to what extent his presence in United States, had an effect on Haitian American community here? But before you answer that question, let's see. Christian has some probably follow up. Christian, you're welcome to ask.
I just maybe want to clarify something.
Mhm.
So, if I can sum up what you're saying, it's basically just bunch of power hungry people trying to maintain their power as well as justify why they should have that power. Like how King said
Absolutely.
that God gave them the right to rule, the divine right to rule, so that's why they became kings. It's the same with these people trying to justify why they can do these things.
Absolutely. That's all it was. And make layman's term, yes. The power elites, to borrow from C. Wright Mills, justify their position through ideology. Nonsense.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. So, that question on Aristide.
That's interesting because Aristide is one of the first leaders. There's others in Haitian historiography who took race and combined it with class and liberation theology that comes out of Latin America. So he appealed to the Haitian Africans and say, you're not poor because you're Black. You're poor because there are those in the mountains, in the hills, the bourgeoisie who are taking the wealth away from you. And this is why America feared Aristide and did its very best to get rid of Aristide out of the Western Hemisphere. And he became an inspiration because he preached amongst the Black underclass in Haiti. He went into the ghettos of Port-au-Prince, the provinces, the misery, and he brought in this liberation theology. He used his platform as a priest to inculcate the Haitians with a class identity, to say you're poor because those up there are rich. And I think this was one of the biggest thing Aristide did for the Haitian people, because he awoke in them. People were okay with their miseries until Aristide arrived and consolidated that through their religiosity, through liberation theology. And if you look at it, and this again goes back to a racial class, if you look at those who hate Aristide in the community, they tend to be your affluent Creole, mulatto Haitians. Even on the island, they tend to be the Creole Haitians, the mulatto elites who despise Aristide because of his class struggles and his liberation theology. So even Aristide himself as a person is a point of division within the community here in America as well as in Haiti. Aristide has to be, outside of Papa Doc, Aristide is one of the most divisive political leaders of Haitian descent. Very divisive, along racial class lines, of course.
Wow. Yeah,
Yes.
that's again something that we from outside would not know. But since we're doing this program or this conversation for our institute, which is based in Slovakia, in Bratislava, and perhaps people over there may not be kind of relating to this. It is a fascinating story when I was reading about Haitian Revolution, how Polish Brigade was
Yes.
participating in the revolution. And so, in other words, Haiti has something to do with the Central European Slavic population, even though most people are not aware of it.
Yes, the Poles were actually sent by Napoleon with the mulattoes to reconquer the island. But when Dessalines appeals to Pétion to renege on the Haitian move against Haiti. Some of the Poles joined in. In fact, they're in a place called in the southern part of the country. Aristide gave them land, so it's a misnomer. There's this misnomer in Haitian historiography that Dessalines hated all whites and he killed all the whites on the island. That's not true. He allowed the Polish to stay on the island. So when you go to the southern part of the country, you'll encounter a lot of descendants of the Poles from the revolution.
Yeah, but don't forget the Slavs may not be necessarily white people in Europe, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But to what extent that kind of did that relationship ever developed? To you're aware of, like, okay, is any exchanges after between?
Not between Haiti and Poland, not really. There was more so. We have to remember the Russians were actually the first to recognize Haiti's independence after 1804, but it was more so solidarity with the Greeks because Haitians were involved in the liberation of Latin America, for example. Alexander Pétion provided many arms to Simon Bolivar to liberate Greater Colombia. There was more so a relationship with the Greeks. Again, we supported their independence. With the Ethiopians as well, the Haitians were involved with that. The Haitians sent professors under Duvalier to West Africa, but we never developed that Polish relationship the way it should have been developed. And now there's a big Muslim movement in Haiti as well, in the southern part of the country. But we never developed the Polish relationship along the lines that it should have been developed.
Yeah. Well, that's all fascinating, and all of that is resonating within the community here in South Florida, as that I am aware of. I even learned how to say sac passe, yeah, and then I learned some other inappropriate things to say in Creole from some of my students, right, which are unbelievably incredibly nice people, right? And that was I first time I actually encountered Haitian Americans when I came down to South Florida, and I was looking how they feel such a sense of pride. They're very proud of who they are, right?
Dr. Mirsad, I think you need to do another one of these. You have a lot of questions in the chat.
No, Carl is obviously well informed. He actually noted that he is Haitian American himself. So, and so he's asking, remember, most Haitian Americans who were born in America do not embrace their culture, identity, or family. They put in their minds that they are Americans. Their parents spread hate, and they don't educate them all about Haitian history. That's what the Louis says. And the Carl is saying, what strategies, Aristide, could we implement so that we are not, I guess, divisive, while at the same time addressing the wealth gap and the social disparities in Haiti between mulattoes and blacks? These are two questions, basically.
That's the latter.
I will invite all of you to ask questions directly if you want, please.
Hello?
That's an interesting.
Yes, go ahead.
Can I go ahead and answer?
Let's see, Carl.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, so the question I asked was, because you spoke about Aristide, how Aristide was divisive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked that what strategies Aristide could have implemented so that he wasn't divisive, while at the same time addressing the wealth gap and social disparities in Haiti between mulattoes and blacks, because the difference between the mulattoes and blacks in Haiti it goes as far as back to when they assassinated the Emperor Jean-Jacques Dessalines, right? So this issue has never been addressed, right? Which of course lingered on to like 1915 when the U.S. occupied Haiti, which they mostly used the mulattoes to control the black population.
Yes.
So back to the question, what strategies you think Aristide could have implemented so that he wasn't divisive while at the same time addressing the wealth gap and social disparities in Haiti between mulattoes and blacks?
Great question. To begin with, it's unfortunate because Aristide, on the one hand, he starts off correctly by enlightening the masses, waking up the masses, telling them, hey, you're not poor because you're Black, you're poor because of class. That was a great start. Unfortunately, after the first coup, he is forced to adopt neoliberal policies on the island, privatize. The only thing he refused to privatize was the ports. He tried to raise the minimum wage, and that's what brought about his second coup. And to answer your question, I'm a revolutionary. I believe he should have say to hell with America and go about implementing some of his policies, such as his collaboration with Cuba, sending Haitians to go study in Cuba in medicine, etc. Although his predecessor would adopt Petrocaribe from Latin America, Venezuela, Aristide was the first to start that process. I believe he should have continued that. But Haiti as a colony of the United States of America and its spheres of influence, I believe his hands were tied. There's basically, outside of all-out revolution as we're witnessing in Burkina Faso, there's nothing he could have done. It was a coup waiting to happen. Jovenel Moïse is assassinated because he goes against the mulatto class and the Americans by trying to form a partnership with the Russians. So, unless you succumb to American politics, American influence, there's really, you have to go all out revolution. And one of the mistakes I believe Aristide made was disbanding the military. I know they were corrupt, but you need a military to fight, just like we're seeing in Burkina Faso. So, but I believe the Haitians are still fighting. That's one thing we inherited from the revolution. We're still fighting, but it's going to take an all-out revolution. So unfortunately, Aristide did the first step, which is waking up the masses. But the second step requires all-out revolution.
Well, revolutions are scary. Okay,
They are.
let's so maybe
But
we
the
find a
Haitians
way.
did the first. We had our first.
Yeah.
People are still. They still can't understand how that was
So
possible.
the reason I'm saying that is because I often tell the students, like stability is also something that most ordinary people like, and
Yes.
revolutions tend to produce a lot of losers and few winners, and there's a lot of instability, and the main cost comes to ordinary people. But I understand, that leftist, how you say, desire for it. I don't necessarily agree with it because.
But we had our first racial revolution. The Haitian Revolution was initially both a racial class revolution. Unfortunately, with the mulattoes and the Creole blacks inheriting the positions of power, they went back to a liberal model to reconstitute the Haitian state, and that perpetuated a racial class struggle that we see today. So there'll be another. There needs to be a class revolution in Haiti.
Definitely,
Aristide started it.
I can see that. I can see that desire. Now, let's kind of also address this Lewis's point that he says that Haitian Americans who were born in the United States, they do not embrace their culture and identity or family even. They so he's claiming
Yes.
their families, the parents spread hate and they don't educate them all about Haitian history. So, I mean, to
Well,
what extent this is correct, or I don't doubt
it's paradoxical because you have to remember this generation of young Haitian Americans post the 1990 Aristide coup that would arrive those we would call boat people. Number one, yes, their parents came from underprivileged, impoverished areas. Many of them lacked in education. They were grounded because of the Protestant missionaries who invaded the island post the Duvalier regime, many of them, number one, they don't know the history of Haiti. And again, I've mentioned the fact that the history of Haiti is so polemical and ideological, and many of them did not have the schooling to institutionalize that. I knew the history because my father comes from that Creole mulatto class, and therefore, he inculcated me with the history prior to my own schooling and research. And the second thing is, it is this generation of Haitian Americans. Yes, Luis is right. They don't fully know and understand the history of Haiti, but they celebrate the culture of Haiti, even though it's misnomer. For example, I have a lot of Haitian students. They think griot is the national dish of Haiti. There's nowhere in Haiti griot is the national dish. In fact, in Haiti, griot was a celebratory dish that was used in voodoo ceremonies. But many Haitian Americans don't know that. So they celebrate griot as the national dish. So every white person I meet, I tell them I'm Haitian. Oh, can I have some griot? I have to educate them. If you're in the North or there's nowhere in Haiti griot is our national dish. But this young Haitian Americans, they're starting to celebrate Haitian Flag Day. Do they know that the red and blue flag was not written in the Constitution of Haiti, the initial Constitution of Haiti? No, they don't. They have no idea. They just celebrating the culture. So what has happened to Haitian culture is become a pop culture that is celebrated by this Haitian American as Americans celebrating Haitian culture. And many of the things they celebrate has nothing to do with but the fact that it's out there brings about debate, discussion, and in doing so, it evolves the identity, it evolves the culture, and hopefully in doing so, many young Haitians will return to the island and see for themselves the history and understand. I gave a lecture once at where was I? McAllister College, which is in Minnesota, and there was a young Haitian man there, and he was saying that, France needs to give us our independence debt back. They forced it on them. And I had to educate them that it was the mulattoes, Haitians, who offered the debt to, and it didn't come about till 1821 after the death of Kriještorac. But in celebrating Haitian culture through popular culture, we can address some of these issues and make the corrections and eventually evolve the culture. And hopefully, with the evolution of the culture, we can then go back and fix Haiti's problems if that's possible.
That's great. I hope I didn't say anything incorrectly when I said sac passé.
No.
Is that still a Haitian culture?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to wrap up. We are about the 90 minutes mark. Chris, unless it's something very important, go ahead. But if not, allow us to finish. Okay, so go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
It was just going to be a question about the whole revolution thing, but I feel like that would take a bit of time.
Yeah. Well, obviously we have quite an interesting conversation, and Dr. Mocombe, looks like we're going to have you again, right? Where we can kind of clarify some of these things and some of these misconceptions about Haitian Americans and Haitians in general, right? They now live really in many other countries, and I heard that you said some of them moved to Spain and France, right? In Europe.
France and Canada.
France and Canada, right? So this is indeed an interesting conversation. We appreciate your time and your willingness to indulge us and educate us. And let's see if you have any concluding remarks.
No, I really enjoyed this. I think you need to do this one more time because the culture, the history is so rich, and there's so much misconception behind the history of Haiti. and the current conditions of Haiti. I think it'll take maybe 2-3 series in order to delve into some of the issues and some of the problems that the Haitian community in America and Haiti is facing in the 21st century.
Well, yes, and our institute is doing our part. We are essentially choosing and trying to push for these communities that are really like understudied and not well understood. That's why we were glad to invite you so we can have this conversation. We'll continue. And I also appreciate all the guests and excellent points. Louis, you made some excellent points and contributed, and everybody else. And hope we will continue this conversation. Sign in for our newsletter so you can get information about future MIRI events. And we will try to bring Dr. Mocombe back sometimes in the future. Thank you again for everybody for being with us, and see you soon.